The Democratic field for president was never as large or loud as the Republican contest, but it's turned out to be the most competitive, with Bernie Sanders, who's vowed to take his fight right to the convention floor, not conceding to Hillary Clinton or mathematics for that matter. Should Bernie throw in the towel or flame the embers? And will Hillary be able to take the high road to the White House or have to engage in mudslinging with Donald Trump? Well, to help us work through that and more, we want to welcome back Freelance reporter Ross Barkan. Great to see you again, Ross. And City and State opinion editor Nick Powell. Thanks for being here, guys.
Sure.
So I guess we'll begin at the beginning thing. I want to know, after those results last night, what do you think the conversation that Obama's having with Bernie today? People have been saying, all right, they're going to have a powwow. They're going to get on that call. What's that conversation?
I think Obama is going to pressure Bernie to drop out and to concede and do it nicely and do it cleanly. I mean, he's very eager to campaign for Hillary. His people all support Hillary. It's really no secret that throughout the primary, he had to remain neutral, but he was a Hillary person ultimately.
Well, she's an Obama person for sure.
Right.
She evokes him every time she's
right.
on
I mean,
the mic.
she will need him in the fall. I mean, he's now a tremendous asset for her. So I think Obama is going to use whatever leverage he has as president of the United States to get Bernie to step aside. The question is whether Bernie will listen, and that's an ongoing question. I don't have that answer yet.
So, Nick, what's the ask from Bernie then? You got the president, the leader of the free world on the line saying, hey, do me a solid. What does Bernie say?
Well, look, I mean, I think he'll obviously, to the extent that he is willing to concede, I think he'll lobby for, you know, a very high-profile speaking role at the convention. I'm sure he will want Hillary to adopt significant parts of his platform. But I also, you know, just to piggyback off of what Ross was saying about the conversation, I do think that Obama will probably, some element of that conversation will be like, look, in 2008, you know, Hillary and I were at each other's throats. It got ugly at times, but you know, you're running under the Democratic Party banner, and no matter how much how much you've kind of ran away from that in the past, like you made the conscious decision to run as a Democrat, and for the sake of party unity, you have to get behind him. And look, I do think Hillary will be willing to adopt some of Bernie's platforms. Maybe not the free college tuition and some of the more radical ideas, but you know, they actually do have a lot of overlap in a lot of their policy ideas. So I don't think it'll be that difficult for her. I think the problem will be if Hillary, it seems like Hillary's interested in kind of picking off some of the moderate Republicans that are turned off by Trump. And so how she strikes that balance between, you know, kind of swaying those folks who are obviously more conservative, but then also wanting to unite some of the more lefty young voters that supported Bernie.
I think you just hit on something. Speaking of those like moderate Republicans and some of the Koch brothers, if you can say moderate, but looking at folks who were sort of crossing lines this election, everything's topsy-turvy. And last night we heard your boy Donald Trump make a ploy for Bernie voters who feel dissatisfied or even disenfranchised in a lot of cases to say, oh, we're here for you. We've got open arms, like peeling off. Do you think that some folks would be that dissatisfied? Because we've heard a lot about the Bernie supporters who would sit this one out and like, the whole system's broken, I'm not going to participate. But I wonder what it would take for someone to go from Bernie to I'm not participating to, yeah, Trump's my dude.
I don't think you're going to see a lot of crossover. You could see some Bernie people just sit it out or maybe vote for a third party, Green Party or something like that. But in general, it's a bit overrated. The talk of Hillary is going to pull a lot of moderate Republicans or Bernie people are going to vote for Trump. Ultimately, a vast majority of Republicans will still vote for Donald Trump. You may see a few less of them, perhaps maybe some of the higher income people who are very loyal to Kasich or to Rubio or Mitt Romney people. But I can't fathom a very large number of Republicans actually deserting Donald Trump because he's the Republican nominee and there's a lot of anti-Hillary sentiment in the Republican Party. And on the Democratic side, a lot of these Bernie voters, most of them will end up voting for Hillary, and I think some of them who are dissatisfied with Hillary will say, well, I'll vote for Jill Stein, the Green Party candidate, or I'll vote for no one. But it's too much of a leap for a Bernie person in general to go for Trump. I know there was definitely some overlap, certainly with working class whites being undecided, but overall, I can't see the Bernie jump to Trump in any significant number.
Oh, let's not make jump to Trump a thing. So what's the worst case scenario for a Hillary Clinton looking at whatever Bernie decides to do? Because it's not like he would be exactly going rogue, because he's not ever been the establishment guy anyway. Bernie can continue to be Bernie and really do damage to Clinton more than to Trump.
Right. Well, I mean, the absolute worst case scenario is she gets indicted, and then, I mean, I think that's pretty unlikely.
Do you think that's his motivation for saying, we're taking it to D.C. and getting all those votes?
I kind of do. I think, I mean, there's been a lot of stuff written over the last couple of days about Bernie maybe drinking a little bit too much of his own Kool-Aid and not listening to his advisors as much, and starting and kind of taking this idea of a revolution a little bit too seriously this late in the game. But I actually do think there's an element to him staying in the race that's like, oh, well, there is a possibility that an indictment comes down, however slim. And, look, it's mathematically over. We all know that.
Right.
There are some uncommitted superdelegates, only about 100, I think, that wouldn't make up the gap that in as far as that goes. So, yeah, I think he's. I wouldn't be surprised if he takes it to the convention, just based on his success in some of the primaries. But I think he's hoping for a floor fight that he might not
So I think
be successful.
something a lot of analysts too are missing with Bernie, certainly comparing to Hillary Obama 08, is that the Hillary-Obama disagreement, it came down to really the Iraq War, but ideologically, they were not very far apart. They're both center-left Democrats from a similar tradition. Bernie is not coming from the Hillary tradition. You have
the other side of the coin.
You have a deep ideological fissure in the party. And so for Bernie's movement, it does make sense to keep fighting. You can say, well, for Democratic unity, it makes no sense. Maybe for the quote-unquote greater good, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
But for Bernie, for his base to keep people excited, to maybe try to really yank the Democratic Party leftward, to keep the energy going and not have it fizzle out. Like the Obama energy really did fizzle out. The Organizing for America, the group he set up to really continue the movement, did nothing.
That's right.
It was a total disaster. So for Bernie, he doesn't want to repeat the Obama mistake. He wants to keep this going. How you do that is the open question. Is this the best way? I don't know.
So
but
there's
this
like
is
a
way.
bizarro world scenario where we're looking at the three candidates and Hillary walks out with the DNC. Trump is the Republican nominee, with a lot of people, including Paul Ryan, doing their best to swallow it. And everyone's talking about this shadow person who might emerge as an alternative to Trump. But Bernie's still polling better than Trump. And Al Gore sorely knows that we don't elect presidents by popular vote here. But these are three viable candidates who could blow up the two-party system. He could really make a run for this thing. He wouldn't have the Democratic machine behind him, but that can only be to his credit, really, if you look at the Bernie supporters who are turning out by the millions kicking Trump's butt. He could finish number 2 or even win the thing.
Well, I think an issue for Bernie is if he ran as an independent bid. I mean, the first thing, he would hurt Hillary, but second of all, every state has different ballot access laws, and it's hard to get on the ballot, especially this late in the game. So it's a question of how many states could he even appear on. He's not going to. The Green Party is not going to give him the ballot line. They have a candidate. So logistically, it'd be very hard for him to do that, and he would probably cost Hillary the election. And is that actually good for his movement? I would say, in that case, probably not. I think there are ways to keep the energy going and even take it to the convention without also continuing on as this, extreme spoiler.
So, Nick, do you think, given a scenario like that, that Bernie could take New York? Because there are all the people who suddenly fell off the rolls, the people who are independents, the people who were switching over and found themselves with no real way to vote on our primary day. We saw what happened in Jersey last night, but could Bernie take New York?
No. I mean, even look, I don't remember the exact number of voters that fell off the rolls, but even if every single one of those voters was a Bernie supporter, he still would have gotten trounced in the New York primary.
Yeah.
No, look, New York's a heavy establishment town, and as we saw, like even the politicians that philosophically are aligned with Bernie, like Bill de Blasio, went for Hillary because at the end of the day, like you want to back the winner, and you know, if Bernie decides to have a third-party bid, you know, maybe he does better. Maybe he performs better in New York than, or in like the downstate area than he does in the primary, given the additional voters on the rolls or whatever. But I still think, just given all the unions in the tank for Hillary, all the establishment support, and you know, if you saw where Hillary won, it was in like the big urban centers in New York, New York City, Buffalo, Rochester. You know. That was a big, I think that was a big miscalculation on Bernie's part to kind of ignore the upstate urban centers in hopes of kind of upsetting her downstate where she's got a really solid base. So in short, no, I do not think he has a chance.
All right, well, you've gotten us into New York. Let's talk about New York. Scott Stringer was there last night, de Blasio, Tish James. There were a lot of New York politicos in the room, but a lot of the eyes seem to have been on our speaker, who is ascending, especially as Hillary goes. You know, de Blasio is a little Johnny-come-lately to the party, although they have their working relationship. But there's a lot of talk today about her getting a spot on the platform at the convention. And this is like the ascendance of Melissa Mark. Do you think that she's really going to run with this thing? At the very least, there could be a little nice job at the end of it in the administration.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she's term limited. Her speakership ends at the end of 2017. She has to think about her next steps. She's not going to run for mayor, at least right now, so she'll become the first speaker ever to not immediately run for mayor. So she's playing this national game very well. She's becoming a really high-profile Hillary Clinton surrogate in New York.
And a Puerto Rican woman who would have a voice and be more powerful than the governor of Puerto Rico if she gets the right position in a Clinton administration with all of the
yes, and there are rumors that she'd even want to be governor of Puerto Rico someday.
Yeah.
But either way, there's definitely probably a job for her in the Clinton administration, assuming Hillary Clinton becomes president. There are other options as well in the national scene.
Yeah.
And one quick point on her, I followed her for a long time. The irony of Melissa is that there was a time in her career where she was really viewed as this far left politician, someone who in another universe, or maybe 5 years ago, would have been a total Bernie Sanders person. But as Nick pointed out, we are an establishment town, and she sees her star hitched to Hillary, and it's a great opportunity for her.
Does that speak to the fact that we're an establishment town, or that Bernie is not connecting with people of color?
That's a good question. I think it's probably a little bit of both. And I think the kind of recurring theme with Bernie's primary performances is that he didn't. He failed to kind of peel off the black Hispanic vote.
Yeah. Not counting Richie Torres, which you wrote about.
Right. Absolutely. Right. No, Richie was bold in that. I mean, I'll give him credit for that.
Gave him a tour.
For sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I definitely think it's a little bit of both. But Melissa's a smart politician, and I think, like, as Ross pointed out, there's no real path for her after the speakership. There's no congressional seats open for her to run for. Obviously, I think the mayoralty is a long shot, at least in 2017. Maybe down the road she reconsiders that. But I think she saw that her path to staying in the public eye and staying involved in politics is is hitching her star, as Ross put, to the presumptive Democratic nominee.
And frankly, there's a vacuum at the top there. There's no Latina woman who has that sort of national 100%. Prominence, who's been doing the work and has the track record, who could stand on her own and be that person. So, amen to that. But moving on, we got about 1 minute left. So I'm going to ask you, is there going to be a female vice president? We've heard that Hillary has a list or a possibility, and there are women on it. Is Trump's move to put a woman on the ticket as well?
Well, Trump could definitely do that. It would probably be to his advantage to put a woman on the ticket. It also depends.
He's really great with women. That's the thing.
Right. That is a big problem with sexism, but yeah, it depends on who the woman is. I think in general the vice presidential picks get overblown. Hillary could go with another woman, Elizabeth Warren, and may not make any great difference in the outcome of the election anyway. So I definitely think it's possible, and I think it's possible Trump goes with a woman. Also could see Hillary's advisors who are naturally cautious, and she's naturally cautious, saying, well, we need some gender balance here. Let's get a man on the ticket. So I could see it going either way.
Yeah, I think the debate for Hillary will be, do we double down on our strength, which is with women voters?
Right.
And historically, if you look at just election cycles, women vote more than anybody.
Can you imagine Melissa Mark Viverito as a vice presidential nominee?
That, I think, would be a bit of a stretch.
But I just thought of it. I'm just saying things out loud.
No.
There are some women.
No, but I do think the calculation for her will be: do we double down on our strength with women voters, or do we, kind of reach out to a more emerging bloc like Hispanic voters, and pick someone like I always forget which Julian Castro.
Brother,
yeah.
He's in the administration
Right. He's
now.
been mentioned a lot as a possible vice presidential pick.
Yeah.
So I think that will be maybe the calculation. Who knows? Maybe they just go with a white male president from like a
Pluck
swing
someone
state or
out
something
of,
like that.
yeah,
Right.
obscurity.
I think that's it's always like do you want somebody who's going to guarantee you a state, which I'm not sure that even necessarily works out all the time, or do you want somebody who's going to get you like a voting block? So.
All right.
We'll see what happens.
Well, this was fun. We got to do it again. We actually attach some names to that vice presidential thing as we go on. But thank you both for being here. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us.